like to give you the chance to introduce yourself and why you decided to run to this office.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work that you do to inform our community, our diverse community, the most diverse community really anywhere in the country. I am excited to talk to you and always very proud of the fact that we are the most diverse in so many different ways, the most religiously diverse, but we have the largest concentration of African diaspora, Ethiopian, Eritrean diaspora in our area. Certainly if we can fight over whether DC, Montgomery County and parts of Virginia, but if you take the region as a whole, it is an easy one for us. And it speaks to the strength of our community. And it is part of the reason why I'm so proud to be from here, that so many people choose to come here. And that we all can live together with our values in a really challenging moment that we're in right now. But I'm Andrew Friedson. As you know, I'm running for county executive. As that's why I'm here. And I'm running because I believe in Montgomery County being a place where every family has the opportunity to thrive and not just survive. There's a real challenge right now where families are struggling to get by, where costs are going up, where housing is not available. Well, childcare has gotten so expensive that it is a challenge. My wife, Demi, and I just had our first baby, and we're experiencing this ourselves. We live in a 2-bedroom. Her office is our second bedroom. That second bedroom is now also our nursery. So when Demi goes back to work, we are confronted with this question. Her desk now becomes our kitchen table. When I work from home, that's my desk. So now we have to figure out what we're going to do. And for so many people, that's a challenge. The last data that we have available, home prices were up 11.2%. Wages were only up 1.7%. And that's not just a data point on a graph. That is the squeeze that so many families are feeling and the questions that they're having of how do they afford to benefit from all the great things that Montgomery County has always offered. So we're at a crossroads. I am working as hard as I can to lead the county, one that is affordable, competitive, and welcoming for all, that we live with our values, and that we make sure that Montgomery County becomes a place that more people can afford and that more businesses want to locate. We've lost 26,000 middle-income residents over 15 years. That is a huge challenge that we have to address. That's about jobs and it's about housing. And we need to be serious about that. And with the assault by the federal government and the Trump administration on our immigrant community and on our federal workforce, we have to fight back, but we have to fight together. And we need a county executive who has a track record and a vision for how we can bring people together to actually do it. I'm the only candidate who's consistently fought back against tax increases. I'll continue to keep the affordability and the costs of our businesses and the competitiveness of our economy at the forefront as I move forward. I've led the effort to pass legislation to cut property taxes for low-income families and seniors, push back as well on tax increases on others. I've led efforts to increase housing opportunities for more people, a groundbreaking $100 million housing production fund, which has become a national model around the country, significant climate investments, including the largest climate investment in the history of the county, the Green Buildings Now Act, and on economic development, including when I was council president, the New Jobs Initiative, which focused on high-paying jobs in strategic areas, our innovation economy, and really focusing on supporting under-resourced, underrepresented BIPOC entrepreneurs and communities. That's what we need to do. We need to grow an economy that can actually support our quality of life. We need to make sure that we have a school system that is held accountable, not just increased funding, but improved educational outcomes for all of our students. I have worked hard on those issues as well, to include performance metrics and to expand the Office of Inspector General to push on those issues. And we need a county executive with leadership to do it. So I am excited by this campaign. There's some real challenges that we face in our community, some existential threats, both from the economic and cost dynamics that our residents are facing, and from a federal government that is not only not a partner any longer, but is a threat to our community. And we have the opportunity right now, despite the fact that it's a dark moment, to seize the challenge, to face it, confront it, to bring people together, and to actually address it. And I am excited for that opportunity. I was asked a few weeks ago, what keeps me up at night? And I talked about all those challenges that we face. And then I thought for a minute and I said, the same thing that keeps me up at night is exactly what wakes me up in the morning. And I believe that. And I am fully convinced that despite the challenges that we face in this really difficult moment, that we have all of the capacity, all of the resources, all of the talent to be so much stronger, so much better moving forward. And it just is a question of whether or not we have the county leadership in order to bring us together to do it. And I am running for county executive to provide that leadership and to do just that.
Jelani will ask the second question.
Thank you. So one of the question is, the residents have expressed interest in how the county maintains public safety and community stability. According to the reports by the banner, the Montgomery County experienced the most increase in homicide in 2025 compared with the previous year. How do you interpret the current public safety trends, and what specific strategies would you pursue to address the violent and crime overall safety within the county?
Well, there's nothing more important in the role of government than in keeping the community safe. We have real recruitment and retention challenges with our police department. There is not enough, personnel to be able to be in the places where we need police to be. So first and foremost, we need to have a county executive that supports, works together with our law enforcement, helps to recruit and retain law enforcement, and ensures that we have the resources in our community to keep our community safe. And I have a track record of doing that, and will continue to do that. We also need a county executive who's going to address some of the root causes that we face in our community. We have a youth crisis. One of the major challenges that we're seeing in our community with increased crime across the board, for the most part, is not up, but youth crime is up, way up. And that is a crisis that we've seen coming out of COVID. It hasn't relented at all. It's gotten worse. That is not just a youth crime challenge. That is a youth mental health challenge. That is a youth after school programming challenge. It requires an all hands on deck approach. And I want to address this in a similar way that we addressed the gang challenges that we were facing in Montgomery County a couple decades ago. That was an interagency effort, brought together government, nonprofit, community, all together. The Street Outreach Network and a number of other efforts have come out of that have been wildly successful. And we helped to mitigate and address many of these issues. We built significant amounts of community trust between law enforcement and the community, and it was successful. What it required was leadership from the county government and from the county executive, and the ability to bring all of the different disparate groups, not just public safety, but public schools, Department of Recreation, parks, all the various places, so that we could provide the type of programming and the type of opportunities for our young people. And that's exactly what I would want to do. The other piece of it that I think has been missing is the coordination regionally and between the county and the state. Ultimately, much of our youth challenges are youth coming from other jurisdictions into Montgomery County, or from Montgomery County going into other jurisdictions. You tend to do the bad things away from where you live, and then you return to where you live. That means that we can't just have a Montgomery County solution to a regional crisis, and we need to be working in a coordinated fashion. We've done this in public safety. After 9/11, we created a regional approach to emergency management, and I think that's exactly the type of effort that we need to do in terms of youth programming and in terms of our response to our young people. That will help us to address our crime issues. It'll also help us to address our youth issues, and it'll allow us to do it in a way that actually addresses root causes, which to me needs to be part of the solution because it's the main part of the problem.
So the next question is, parents have asked about how issues related to gender identity and sexuality are addressed in public schools. What role, if any, should the county executive play in these matters? And how should parental preferences be considered, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, the county executive and the county council don't have a direct role in the curriculum of the school system. And I think that is an important distinction. And on either side of that issue, regardless of how you feel, I don't think that you want a politicized school curriculum on one end or the other. And so to have elected officials that are, delving into those issues in specific ways, I think is a challenge. I do think it's up to the county executive to help to hold the school system accountable, to ensure that the process for addressing these issues is done appropriately, to make sure that policies are being followed, to be a voice and an advocate for the community. And I would continue to do that as county executive. And I think it's an important role that the county executive has. But I don't think that the county executive should play the role of dictating to the school system what the curriculum should be. And state law has been very clear in what the boundaries should be vis-a-vis the county government, political leadership, and the school system.
Thank you. I think the next one is also a little bit of the school system related, and the community would like the county exec to be a little bit certain on that. So question is, member of the Ethiopian American community and other residents in certain neighborhood have said they would like to see stronger infrastructure investment, improvement in school outcomes in the areas. How would you respond to those concerns, and what investment would you prioritize? This question is more, Lee, we ask for the east side of the county, the schools, elementary schools and middle schools. We would like their performance to increase. We know the county exec or the county government side doesn't have a lot to say when it comes to education, but I think the community is saying if you can put a little emphasis on the budget, and how would you do that to make sure those areas are met, all the needs?
Yeah, well, it is the job of the county executive to propose the budget after getting a recommendation from the Board of Education. So there is a significant role here. And it is up to the county executive to advocate for that budget and to communicate it to the public and to the council that ultimately approves it. For a long time, Montgomery County Public Schools was so focused on enrollment growth in certain parts of the county that they, from a facility standpoint, were not focused on maintenance of their existing facilities, which caused significant amount, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in deferred maintenance that didn't happen, that should have happened, that needed to happen, and that has caused deterioration of the facilities that we have. And it had a disproportionate impact. There were also certain policies that led to that. They weren't intended to be inequitable policies, but they actually were. So for instance, the moratorium policy that said that if housing growth was up to a certain, was in a certain area and school enrollment numbers were up, that housing was stopped in that area. And so what happened was, in order to allow for housing to happen, the money was flooded into the areas that were already growing. And so the inevitable reaction to that policy was that popular high income areas of the county that were growing at a rapid pace, where investment was already happening, we were seeing more public investment. So essentially the private investment was happening and the public investment was following the private investment. So almost all the investment was happening in the same places. And we had a policy that was set up and designed to do that. Now, the intention of that policy was essentially to be anti-growth and anti-housing, was to stop new housing from being built. But the net result was inequity. And I led the effort to end that policy countywide for a number of reasons, part of which was that it's inequitable, that it caused investment in places at the expense of other places, which was exacerbating, increasing the amount of inequities that we were seeing across the county. So we have eliminated that, number one. Number two, we're not seeing the enrollment growth in the county. In fact, it's happening the opposite in terms of our public schools. And so the school system has shifted their policy to focus on school expansions and more focusing on other factors. We also now have a prism with which we look at all of our budget decisions at the county, the Racial Equity Social Justice Bill, which should address these issues and should force us as a county executive, as a county council, to address and confront these issues. And I believe that is starting to change, but obviously it takes a long time to fix, decades and decades of, a problem don't get fixed in, months or a couple of years. And so we were on that path. So that's in terms of the facilities side of things. I do think we need to, continue on that path. And I do think we need more investment in it. And I do think we need to be responsible in the way that we invest in it. In terms of outcomes, this is a key issue. In the interest of equity, there were certain policy decisions that were made. And I think well-intended, they haven't worked. And the school system is starting to talk about this and starting to confront it. And I give the superintendent some credit for that. But we need to continue on this path. This idea that we would choose between excellence and equity for our opportunities for all of our young people is an absurd false choice. The idea that in Montgomery County, we wouldn't demand both, we wouldn't be advocating and ensuring that there is opportunities for every single student in every single school that are world class, that is not an acceptable outcome for any county executive, for any county council, for any school board, or for any family. And I don't think we should accept that, and I don't think we should allow it. And as county executive, I am going to continue to push for that. And that means making some choices. That means prioritizing. That means making certain decisions, but it doesn't mean lowering the standards. It means keeping the standards where they are, maybe even raising the standards, but ensuring that everybody actually has the opportunity to meet those standards. Everybody has the resources that they need in order to achieve that standards. It means putting in interventions that are required to address them, because in this interest in doing what we had talked about doing, the students who have been left most behind are students in concentration of poverty schools, are Black and brown students, are foreign-born students, English as a second language students, are students with disabilities. So the very students who we were trying to help have been those who have been most harmed and who have been most left behind. And we have to change that, and we have to fix that, and we have to demand both. And the last part of this is, I think, that the role of the executive, working with the superintendent, working with the school board, but also holding them accountable, since we are the ones who are providing the resources that are your taxpayer dollars, and we should ensure that we get something for those resources. Funding in and of itself is not going to solve these problems. If it were, we would have solved the problems before. We need to focus on educational outcomes, and we need to demand that educational outcomes are the priority. It's not fully fund the budget. That's not in and of itself enough. That doesn't really do anything. That's one part of it. But what we really need to focus on are educational outcomes. What are we getting for the dollars that we're investing? How are our students benefiting? How are our families impacted? by these dollars in these programs. We need to eliminate the things that aren't working. We need to be doubling down on the things that are. We need to be focusing the resources where there's the most need. We need to be making sure that the dollars are going into the classroom where they have the most impact, not to, administrative costs and central office and other dynamics. So ultimately, the county executive doesn't make those individual budget decisions, but the county executive does set the tone for the conversation and also does ultimately make the recommendation for the county budget to the council. And in that role plays a significant position. And then the last thing that I'll say on this is it's exactly what I've tried to do on the county council and what I'll be in a better position to do as county executive. When I was council president, we included performance metrics in the budget resolution for Montgomery County Public Schools for the first time ever, based on my advocacy and my bringing the council to rally around that issue. So that is something that we need to build on. It's not enough in and of itself, but it was an important first step. We also have expanded the Office of Inspector General. That was an effort that I led on the council to increase and expand the scope of the Office of Inspector General. That is the person and office that is responsible for addressing financial problems and performance-based issues, policy-based issues within the government. We expanded that to Montgomery County Public Schools. Every single problem in the schools from a fiscal standpoint on a broad base that anybody has heard about over the last few years, all of that has been an Office of Inspector General report. That was based on the work that I did and I led, and I'll continue to push for efforts like that so that we use every tool within our toolkit and all the power that we have to hold the school system accountable. It doesn't mean we won't work with the Board of Education and the superintendent. We need to. But we also need to hold them accountable to demand outcomes for our kids and for our families.
Thank you. I think what's important for within our community or the immigrant community, I'm going to say for our Ethiopian community, is education, quality of education, and is a number one priority. And then next will be public safety. So we want to make sure whether it's a county exec or superintendent or county council, they understand that education for us, I think, it solves a lot of the core problems that happens in the teenager years or beyond that. So yeah, I mean, I said the east side of the county because I do live in the east side of the county.
Yeah,
it's not the area. I mean, the school does not perform well, even though it's a middle class area. But for some reason, the schools is just not performing as it should be. And we just, as a parent, as a community, we try to figure out why those issues arise. And I think this conversation, like you said, it needs to happen with the school council and superintendents. But we just want to make sure incoming county execs understands that our number one priority is education for our kids. So that's all. Thank you.
Totally agree with you on that. It's why people come here, whether they're coming here from other parts of the region or the country, or whether they're coming here from other parts of the world. That's the reason. And we have an obligation to do it, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we need to do it to be competitive.
All right. Moving on to the next question. Many residents say the overall cost of living, including rent, utilities such as electricity, food, medication, property taxes, and county fees, has become a challenge. And I think you mentioned we have lost over 26,000 middle income families as well. So what actions would you take as a county executive to address these economic pressures while maintaining essential services? But I just want to add one element here. What have you done as a county council as well? And let's start with that and move on to what you try to achieve if you get the position of the county executive.
Well, let's be clear. You don't make Montgomery County more affordable by making it more expensive to live here, by making it more expensive to start a business here or to invest here. And unfortunately, that is what some of my colleagues have done. I have been the only person who's running in this race who's consistently pushed back and fought back against a number of tax increases. And I have consistently said that tax increases, I think, should be our last resort, not our first resort, which unfortunately has too often been the way in which it has been treated and has had a real impact on our families. It's also not just about families. When you talk about property taxes, it's also small retailers. Every small retailer pays directly in their rent in a triple net lease. They pay the property tax directly. And so when you're talking about small retailers, and so many of our immigrant small business owners are small retailers, they are directly impacted by those significant, repeated property tax increases. So what have I done? I've fought back. I've in a number of instances, I've stopped tax increases. In other instances, I voted against the ones that did go through and were supported by my other colleagues. I have supported small businesses and families through grant programs. I started the Public Health Emergency Grant Program to support small businesses to make it easier to stay in business in the depths of COVID. When COVID was happening and businesses were being shut down, I led the effort along with colleagues to support our childcare facilities to make it easier for childcare to stay in business, and also to be able to continue to provide childcare access to families, since childcare is oftentimes the second or third biggest expense for our families. It's a hugely cost prohibitive issue. We don't have enough childcare, and childcare that we do have is too expensive for far too many young families. It's a major issue that we have to grapple with. I pushed back and fought back against double-digit water bill increases. Colleagues voted for that. It was a 10-to-1 vote. I was the only council member who voted against a double-digit increase to water bills, and I fought back and was able to bring down a number of the proposed fee increases that the county executive proposed, and that we were able to push back on, to fight back on, because there is nothing without affordability. If people can't afford to live here, they can't live here. And if they're living here and their affordability has become more and more challenging, this is the oxygen that a working family breathes, and they're suffocating. And that means that they can't do all the other things that they need to do and want to do. That is a root cause of many of the challenges that we face. They're economic issues that we have to challenge. So we need a county executive that's going to be relentlessly focused on the affordability of our residents, that isn't going to resort to tax and fee increases in order to balance the budget, but will look to actually figure out how do we make it easier to invest and to live here? How do we make it more affordable to live here? We need to grow the economy. We have a stagnated economy in Montgomery County, which is one of the reasons why we've had to resort to tax increases. And we need a county executive that is going to actually increase job opportunities. And I mentioned childcare and small business earlier, and I just think this is such an important dynamic, since so many of our immigrant families, that's what they do. They come here and they start a small business, and that's how they survive. I come from a family of a very small business myself, and my family, had the business over the store, a couple of generations ago. And so it's, sometimes the dynamics of what the immigrant story looks like has changed. Maybe you come by plane instead of by boat, but the idea of why and for what in terms of the immigrant story is the same. You're coming here for opportunity, economic opportunity, educational opportunity, things that we provide that opportunity, that promise. We have to continue to do that. But if you can't afford to live here, it doesn't work. And that's why these are such important issues. On home-based businesses, I expanded opportunities to make it easier for home-based businesses to operate. So many of our women-owned and also immigrant-owned businesses are home-based businesses. And also home-based childcare. Our immigrant community, more than any other community, relies on home-based childcare in order to be able to survive in the workforce. And we made it easier for home-based childcare to operate throughout Montgomery County. And then the last piece is housing. I've been the biggest leader on housing as chair of the housing committee on the county council. We created a $100 million housing production fund, a $50 million nonprofit preservation fund. Those two funds alone will help us to create thousands of new units and preserve 4,500 existing naturally occurring affordable housing units, units that are younger families, our younger workers, our immigrant community is relying on because they're more affordable units. And by preserving them and ensuring them that they stay affordable allows more opportunities and more access to be able to address them. But if we don't have a county executive that is relentlessly focused on the costs and the affordability for our residents, then we have missed the issue that they are facing on a day-to-day basis. Because again, money is like oxygen. If you don't have enough of it, you don't think about anything else. If you have more than you need, you probably don't have to think about it so much. But for an average working family right now in Montgomery County, all they can think about is their next bill. All they can think about is their utility bill going up, their rent or their mortgage that's going to come through, the lease that they have to keep their business going. It's the only thing that they can think about because it's what's putting food on the table. It's what's providing for their family. It's what's allowing them not to get displaced and uprooted and have to move. And we need to be focused as much on those issues as they are on those issues.